Okay, folks, welcome back to the Wanneroo channel. So thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We've got new subscribers, and also there's going to be a lot of other videos coming up soon. There might be a little bit of a pause in video releases around Thanksgiving, but you know, I got plenty of stuff planned coming up, so you know, keep watching, and appreciate all the comments and viewership and everything. So today we're going to carry on with part 2 of our 45 ACP 230 grain full metal jacket bullets with CFE pistol powder. So we haven't, let's see if I sneak that in there. We haven't used CFE pistol before, so this is first time using that. So we'll see how that goes, see if I like it. If it works well and I'm happy with it, you know, right now there seems to be plenty of it on the shelves. So you know, I can go back out and buy a couple more pounds just to have on hand. So with this project here, it's just a matter of we need to finish up this 45 brass. Just got a little bit of it left from what I previously did, and we need to kind of finish this off, and then I'm going to be converting the doing some maintenance on the press, which I'll probably do a video on that. Essentially what I do, you know, every couple thousand rounds with my Hornady Progressive to kind of get it ready to go, you know, for setting it up for another, you know, cartridge or whatever. And so we'll probably do a little video on that, and then we're going to roll into 9mm over the winter. So there's going to be multiple 9mm projects going on this winter on the channel. So with that said, first thing we're going to do is just talk about how I have the press set up today for what we're doing, kind of my reasonings and kind of the way I go about things. And you'll find out there in the reloading world that, you know, well, it's like whenever I started. There's, you know, I read books, I watch YouTube videos, I talk to people in person. And a lot of times for different things, you're going to get all sorts of nuances on how to tackle different stuff. And so what you do is you just kind of collate that all together, and, you know, and basically, you know, you have, when you're reloading, it's all up to you. So you've got to take all this stuff and, you know, essentially kind of decide your approach to it or how you're going to do it. So first up here, there's no resizing die that I have set up on this. And a lot of people would be like, well, hey, you got a Progressive. Why didn't you, you know, resize it on the Progressive? Well, the thing was, is that last winter, this was all set up for 9mm, and we were loading tons of 9mm. And then I got the new Lee app press. And so I set that up, and I did a very popular video. You can check that out earlier in the year about resizing 45 ACP. And I think that's got like 7,500 views or something now, so that's really good. So, you know, what I did was I was like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and resize all my 45 there because I'm doing 9mm over here. And then I don't mind hand priming, so I just went ahead, I cleaned the brass, and then went ahead and primed it. So that way I was like, well, whenever I get it to the Progressive, I'll just have to set up these couple other steps and I'll be good to go. Won't have to worry about resizing and priming on the press and all that. So hey, whatever. One of the things that you're going to find whenever, you know, you're doing reloading and stuff, if you do a lot of it like I do, is that you're going to end up with multiple presses, and you're going to end up with, you know, different things going on. It's like I have my RCBS rock chucker right now that is all set up for loading 300 blackout. So I have a whole separate table over there dealing with that. And then over here, you know, I'm doing my pistol stuff, and then I have the Lee app over there doing some other stuff right now. So you're going to have kind of probably multiple things going on, you know. And yeah, that's just kind of the way it is if you're doing a bunch of stuff. And probably in the future, I can see having multiple Progressive presses where at some point, whenever I kind of build my dream reloading setup, I'll probably have multiple Progressive presses where I'll have one set up for 9mm, one set up for you know, 38 or 357, you know, one set up for 45 ACP. And pretty much everything will be dedicated to that right there, you know, and won't have to kind of fiddle around with changing up all these different calibers. So we don't have to worry about resizing or expanding, or priming but we are going to be expanding. So with the expanding now, the way that I have this set up is I tend to kind of bell my brass with 45 fairly aggressively, and there again, there's a lot of different kind of thoughts about belling your brass. One thing is that with belling the brass, obviously we need to get our bullet to fit in there and all that, is that if you are more aggressive about belling the brass, probably your case mounts are probably going to wear out maybe a little bit sooner. The thing is, though, whenever I'm going kind of more full speed on the progressive press here, is that I don't want to run into issues with fitting the bullet to get the bullet seated. So, the rule of thumb that I go by whenever I set up my expanding die is, I want that basically belled enough that I can just, anytime that I go to, it's kind of hard with the camera here, but anytime I go to kind of put that bullet there to get seated, I don't want to run into problems, okay? I just want to make it easy. So if it ends up wearing out the case mounts a little bit sooner, okay, whatever. Brass is replaceable. It just goes in the recycling bucket and it moves on to its new life at some point. That's just my thoughts on it. That's just kind of the way I do it. So, up to you kind of on that. Now, the other thing with the progressive here is that with the powder measure is you can buy the PTX, I think they call it the PTX expander. And I tried that, which is basically you drop the powder at the same time it expands. So inside of the powder measure there's this little doohickey that you put inside there to expand the brass. And well, what I kind of found with that was it just didn't work that well and didn't expand the brass that well. So maybe it was me. I didn't set it up right. Hey, I don't know. I don't know what it was. But anyways, it didn't really work for me. Okay. So next up is going to be dropping our powder. So we've got CFE pistol. So here's what I did. I've got the brand new Hornady reloading manual. I looked in there, and basically the starting load that they have listed is 5.2 grains. The velocity they came up with their data was 700 feet per second. And then it tops out with a max load of 6.9 grains for 900 feet per second. And basically they're seating these at 1.25, which is typically the way I seat my 230 grain bullets. So that's usually the overall length that I use. So then the other thing that I did is I like to compare data. So I will check other sources to kind of see what they say and then kind of come up with what my starting load's going to be. Now, Hornady, one of the things I find with their reloading manual is it tends to be fairly conservative to the point where I've seen their max load be the starting load in other reloading manuals. So that's not, common, but I have seen that before. So, I always like to compare different sources. So I went and looked up Hognan's website and see what data they have on theirs. And basically their starting load was 6 grains. Now they seated the bullet a little bit deeper though at 1.2. So, there again, what you have to kind of do is you have to take all this information out there. And I've never used CFE pistol before, but take all the information out there and then come up with a rational starting load. That's the way I do it. That's my opinion on it. So if you're a brand new reloader, you can go by the book and start way down at the bottom. And that's, probably really what you need to do is go off of, get a couple sources of data. I have all kinds of reloading manuals, and then decide what your starting load is going to be, And especially if you're starting out and you're new to this, you definitely need to start on the lower end. But I'm going to kind of go in the middle, kind of towards the bottom, and I'm going to start at 6 grains. So I already with, you know, weighed out the powder charge and double checked it a bunch of times. And so we're good to go. So we're going to be going for 6 grains of that. And we'll go ahead and get powder charge in there. And then I'll just check and verify. Yep. So a lot of times with the Progressive, you can get one of those, there's like a different dies that you can get, or a die to check the powder charge and all that. I tend to have kind of keep a fairly close eye on it. And then also too, you know, I'll get up and just kind of verify with my eyes sometimes that it's dropping the powder and there's no big issues and all that. So I don't have my Progressive set up that way. All right, so now next up, we've got the powder there in the first one. We're going to go ahead and add another piece of brass here, and we're going to go ahead and get our bullet started, and then on to the next step. So now we're going to seat our bullet. All right, and here we are. So now, let's see, where's my calipers? We're just going to double check. Should be set up good, but we're just going to double check to make sure everything is good. Okay, so we got our overall length checked. Everything's looking good on that. So I already had the press already set up, but I was just kind of verifying it to make sure nobody had, you know, accidentally fiddled with it. So everything was fine. So now we're going to move on to the Lee factory crimp die. That's our last step on the press. And the thing with the Lee factory crimp die is that basically we're using that just to put a light taper crimp on it. And then also too, that crimp die should take out any belling of the brass that we did with the expanding die. So I just have that set up as a separate operation. I've used the Lee factory crimp die for pistol for years now. Seems to do the trick and works just fine. So I've never kind of deviated off of using that. Even if sometimes I end up using other brands for resizing or whatever it might be. You know, I've kind of stuck with that as my last step. Seems to work. So we'll roll with that. So that is pretty much our last step on the press. And then the one thing that I always do before I go to shoot is I always check my work, and case gauges are just a nice way to do that, and just to kind of verify that, hey, your ammunition fits. There's no, you know, defects in terms of it fitting in that case gauge. It's not extending out past the end there where we have overall length issues, anything like that. So case gauges, it's just a nice, easy, quick way to check your work. If it doesn't fit for some reason, now the other thing you do have to watch with these is you have to keep them clean, all that stuff, because sometimes if there's a little piece of brass, you know, some little brass bit or some other granular, you know, grain of dirt or sand or whatever, you know, whatever the hell it might be, that can get in there, you know, that can cause you issues. So you do have to make sure that you keep them nice and clean. If I run into an issue where a round doesn't fit properly, I always check it and clean it out, make sure everything, there's no excessive material in there, dust, whatever. It's all nice and whistle clean. You know, and sometimes it has been a problem. Maybe a little spare piece of brass or whatever, brass flake or whatever messes it up. But anyways, just keep them clean. And then I just check my work with that. And I tell you, it's funny because you go to matches and stuff, and, you know, I'll watch these people shoot, and they're constantly racking one live round after another out of their handgun, especially 1911s. It seems like people that load the custom, you know, that they make at home lead bullets, and a lot of those 45 ACP 1911s, they're always choking on them for whatever reason. So whether it's a bullet sizing issue or whatever they're doing with their reloading. But I'll sit there and, you know, it's like every damn stage they're racking out live rounds out of the gun. It's just like, well, you know, check your work. You know, And I'll tell you, the thing is that for all the tens of thousands of pistol rounds that I've loaded over the years, however, I don't even know, I even want to know how many it's been now, but it's been a lot. And I check every round with the case gauge. And I would say maybe like with 9mm, maybe about 1 out of every 150 to 200 doesn't pass the case gauge. And it could be just the brass. There's some manufacturing issue with the brass, or maybe there's a bulge in it that the resizing and all that didn't take out, or whatever. Or there's some issue where the bullet got seated kind of funny, and I'm like, hey, whatever. I don't stress about it. I basically just pull the bullet and dump the powder out, and then throw the brass away in the recycling bucket and move on. Whatever the problem is, I don't stress about it. I just get rid of it because it's obviously not working. So, with that, what I have run into is that, like, whenever I go to matches and stuff, I think in all the years I've been shooting matches, I've had a 9mm round choke once, and I can't even remember what the issue was, but I basically, with whether I'm practicing or shooting in a competition, when I go to the range and I have my load already set, my powder charge is kind of set, I know what my load is and all that. I'm not doing developmental work, but this is a load that I've settled on. I don't have reliability issues with ammo, and I think a lot of it just comes down to checking your work. Now, the next thing that we're going to do with this is, again, it comes down to checking your work. Is we're going to go out and we're going to chronograph these loads. So we have the data from the Hornady book and also from Ogden, and so it's always good to go and kind of verify, and they have their data, whatever. We'll go and verify it ourselves with our own chronograph and kind of see how it shakes out, and you can kind of compare the two and kind of see where you're at. If you're way off for some reason, then maybe that's a variable that you want to figure out. So that's just kind of my thinking on it. So I think we're getting close to wrapping it up here, and I can kind of put the camera away and then kind of go ahead and bang out 20 or 30 of these to test out, and and we'll see how it goes in part 3. So for part 3, we're going to have to wait for some decent enough weather. I don't mind like a little shower because I do have overhead cover on the range. I don't mind a little shower or even some wind or whatever, but whenever it's just raining cats and dogs, out there, and it's just pouring down, obviously can't really do much. But so next week, hopefully we'll get some clear weather. We'll get out and get part 3 of this done, wrapped up, and we'll finish up basically with the remaining brass that we have. And then this winter for pistol, I've got a ton of 9mm to load, and I also have 32 ACP, and I have 357 Magnum, and I have 38 Special. So I definitely need to load because I'm just about all out of 38 and 32 ACP. So we really need to load those this winter. So there's going to be a bit of that coming up, and some stuff with that. So we'll tackle that later this winter. But anyways, so stay tuned. We got more stuff coming up. I've got another review that I'm working on for a piece of outdoor equipment with the pressure washer. And I've got a few other outdoor videos I'm working on. And so, stay up with that stuff too. And a few other things going on that I'm working on putting together. So we've got a lot more we're going to do on this channel, and should be some interesting stuff. So hey, thanks again for those of y'all that watch, and we'll see you soon.